the effectiveness of such a letter?
I think it's interesting because at this point we basically have all these tech companies coming together and saying, here's what we think. We've had like individual blog posts and things like, or at least internal letters. And so this was bringing this all together. Perhaps, we'll see how effective it is.
Phil, coming to you, I mean, this actually is a very personal thing for you because you yourself were a refugee from the Soviet Union. You just told me you came over at the age of 8. Is technology reacting in the right way?
I think we're reacting in the right way and the wrong way. I very much favor a constructive engagement. I would, for personal reasons, would be a hypocrite if I didn't want to see more immigration, more refugees, more compassion. I just don't know that yelling about it is the best way to actually convince people to change our minds. So some of that is probably necessary, but I'm a big supporter of constructive engagement, trying to figure out how to move the world forward together with the administration and not just completely trying to block everything at every step of the way.
Because interestingly, sadly, potentially, one line of engagement has been cut today. We've seen Travis Kalanick of Uber decide that he's not going to be on the advisory panel. Right. But so far, Brian, the actions that we're seeing of the companies working together as well, is it being listened to in any way?
I think what's interesting is kind of what you were just talking about, is there is a hope that it will be listened to, I think, in this letter if it does get sent and all that good stuff, because there's a certain diplomacy in it. I think you could say it doesn't have sort of this sharp edge to it that maybe some of these things, you know, like I was saying earlier. So I do think that there's real hope that, hey, if we try to say, hey, we agree on this, we agree on that, what about these things? Let's talk about that. I think that at least was more the tone than some of these other things you've seen.
And so maybe moving in the direction that you'd like to see it. But was it disappointment that we've seen one line of engagement between Travis Kalanick and the president end? And is it good that we're seeing the CEO of Disney and Elon Musk there?
So I don't know the specifics around Travis stepping down, but in general, I'm sad about it. I think Travis is a super smart person, and I think having more smart people engage with the process is better than being kind of bullied into taking an absolutist position. I think tactically there's kind of two things, right? You need to motivate your own base, people who agree to you, and keep the pressure on them to make sure that they turn up for elections. And I get that, that's important. But there's a whole other big piece, which is you actually do need to change the minds of people who disagree with you, or maybe who haven't made up their mind. And I think sometimes it's harder to be constructive than to just be loud. And I'd like to see more people being constructive, and so I'm happy about these letters and this tone of engagement.
Brian, has Microsoft, they talked about the number of individuals that are affected. Have they talked about the business effects here, or have we got anything tangible as to how much this might hurt companies?
You know, that's a great question. I think at this point there is just a lot of unknowns. I think that you could definitely argue, look, if there is, you know, pressure here on who we can get in and who wants to stay in the U.S. or work for our companies, that has a longer term effect. I think that's a big concern. As far as tangible effects, I mean, what are we in, less than a week? It's hard to see all those things, but definitely some big concerns there, and that's why tech companies are talking about it.